the public comment, topic, I'd be interested to be informed on that. Okay.
I think clearly we should allow the public to speak on any topic pertaining to board jurisdiction. Exclusive, not restricted by the agenda at hand.
Okay, Katie?
I agree, and I said it already in our meeting. I like the 3 minutes, as Tara said. When someone is speaking, we give them a very, kind warning that they're approaching time to finish up, but they're always allowed to give us their comments in writing or via email to our chair.
Wait, are we doing the time, or are we doing?
We'll do the time separate,
sorry.
but
No, I just make sure I understood.
Okay, so with regard to the time, I had mentioned to Marge that I might enforce like a 3-minute moments of silence here at this meeting so we could demonstrably understand how incredibly long in some ways that 3 minutes is, but I will not put this group through that. I will tell you that because I was curious and I'm a geek, before I left work yesterday, I put the Gettysburg Address on my computer screen and I read it 5 times at variant speeds, and at no time did I come close to 3 minutes. So it occurred to me that if Lincoln could do the Gettysburg Address in 3 minutes, that perhaps that would be, or less than 3 minutes. I would suggest that 3 minutes may be an appropriate amount of time as we have it, but I'm willing to hear what other folks have to say.
I was curious. Okay, so we're going to talk about the time.
So now we'll talk about
frame.
the 3
Okay,
minutes.
all
Yeah.
right. No, because there's 2 parts to this
Yeah.
whole public comment.
Right.
That I know the administration is recommending 3 minutes. That came to us in the material you sent, and I was curious. I know we talked about Granby, that came up in the meeting, but what about other DIRGs? Do you know what they're using? Just curious what the.
So just. I think he is in there.
Oh, sorry, started with Adam. I didn't think it was started.
Okay.
Wow.
Just to be clear, the administrative recommendations have nothing to do with Granby's. Just to be very clear about that, okay? That came up third party. Somebody asked me that. This is not a recommendation pertaining to Granby's process. I will say, by and large, I've also found 3 minutes is adequate time. I think you just try and find a balance that communicates to the parents, we want to hear from you, right? And that allows it to be reasonable, whatever the benchmark of reasonable is. I'm not fixated on the number. It's just an administrative guideline, a suggestion. It has to feel right to the board, obviously, and it has to feel right to the community, and just trying to strike that balance, basically.
Okay, but do we know what they use around us?
Around here, I'm not quite sure. What do you use?
I can speak to Weston. Where
Perfect.
I was
There
in
you go.
Norwalk, Weston was 3 minutes. Norwalk was 3 minutes. Norwalk was very stringent about their 3 minutes. They actually had the buzzer go off
Okay.
3 minutes.
You have a buzzer?
No, before we decide, make a recommendation from this body, I thought it's important that we at least understand what your recommendation is and what are our peer towns doing. Okay, and Wes.
I did ask Tom if there was any sort of general, there's no rule, but 3 minutes is very standard.
Okay.
Also note, we do have some public here today, and there will be a public comment section, so I'm happy to hear from anyone in the public for 3.5 minutes even. We'll go crazy on a Wednesday morning. Okay, anything else on the time? Okay, so
Well, is there any, can we have the public comment at this point if they would
well,
like?
let's just do it at the, because I'll note what the public comment is, so I'll bring that forward. So I'm just going to represent what I heard. We're not going to. I don't think we need to vote as a committee on the 3 minute rule. I mean, I want to just be informed on it. I think the whole board is going to listen, and they're going to decide 3 minutes up or down, or propose another time frame.
Okay, well, I think to reflect that the administration's recommending 3.
Yeah.
The experience of our surrounding communities represents 3 minutes. That's what we've discussed.
Okay. I may mention the Lincoln thing. I'll just tell you.
And the Gettysburg Address.
Okay. Anything else on this? I'm sorry.
That we can wrap up the that the topic of public comment will be
Anything within the
open to anything.
jurisdiction of the board.
Okay, so we
Or
can
words to that effect.
close the public comment topic.
This is the marked up version of our policy, which
Yeah, I just wanna-
has 20 minutes on any given topic.
Right,
Oh.
we don't have that, that's,
So that's the In Shipman and Goodwin's model
That's in their
policy,
model.
right,
I-
without
That's
the
their
numbers.
yeah,
20 minutes.
I wasn't looking to add that, to change that at this point. That wasn't really the direction from the
Okay.
board, so I wasn't, but I did notice that in their policy, but I gave that out just to look at the jurisdiction aspect.
Just
Okay.
so New Canaan is 2 minutes allotted to each speaker and a maximum of 15 minutes for each subject matter, so they're
More
less than we
restrictive.
are.
Okay, next item is the sunscreen application. This is to be consistent and compliant with state standards who have made the determination that it's proper and safe with these restrictions that children be allowed to apply sunscreen to themselves before going out into the playground. Looking it over myself, I thought it seemed proper and necessary, but we're here to discuss it if there are any questions or concerns.
Wait, you thought the law was necessary, or the policy was necessary?
I think the policy
Okay,
and the
yeah.
rule is necessary and
Rule's
proper.
ridiculous, but.
The boys are studying the necessary and proper clause, so it's been in my mind lately.
Yeah, I no issue.
Any thoughts, any questions? Okay. Sunscreen.
I know, like, why do they need a law for it? And they have to plan it for?
Okay, the last item on our agenda this morning is a further discussion of the budget categories for line item transfers. I believe, let me just see, I don't know if I handed this to Katie. So in this,
I have it on
oh,
my.
you did? Okay. So in this packet is the first document is Rich's memo from September 11th, where he recounts our categories now, a proposal he had made at that time to convert 10 to 9. And then also in there is our current full policy with the categories. And then the last document is a CABE document that does the categories instead of 10 or 9, does 8, which is also what I guess Westport does right now. And Rich is interested in taking the CABE categories, the 8, which is on your last page. For me, looking at the categories and the purpose, this isn't so much about transparency, because it's going to have equal transparency. This, to me, looks like ease of tracking and categorization and being consistent with what other districts and what the state recommends. I'll let Rich just take a moment to speak again to this, and then if we have any questions, then we can discuss it amongst ourselves. So, Rich?
So the goal is really to align the categories to the state reporting that each district is required to do. So as we mentioned, the primary difference is purchased or professional technical services. That includes the legal fees and consulting fees. Currently in the categories that we have, there is not really a category where those items would fit within the ledger. As Mike had mentioned, the number of districts use these categories. So, for example, Westport has them. New Canaan does report their financials and their budget on these categories. Norwalk does. Weston does as well. The other language that was added that we talked about at the last meeting was just to clearly state that the superintendent has authority within the broad categories, which is what the current practice is right now. The one difference that from the memo that we provided in September to what's here is that we did not add the category revenue as a broad category. Not every district records revenue equally, so CABE did not recommend necessarily having revenue as its own broad category. So if we were to make an adjustment from revenue to one of the other broad categories, it would just have to be a transfer.
Can you just clarify, Rich, on the CABE one, it has purchase services and other purchase services versus purchase services and other services? What?
So within other purchase services,
Yeah.
It can include anything from transportation, it can include tuition, it can include professional development or like travel and conference. Those would be the categories within other purchase services.
And then what would the regular purchase services
So
be?
purchase services would be like consulting services, legal fees.
Our strategic plan.
A strategic plan would be considered a purchase service.
Okay. Right, any other questions for Rich, or any other, comments or concerns about this?
I think it's great, and we should align with what is easiest for you in terms of reporting to the state. I think the one thing we should do when we do make the changeover is bullet under some of these for the public, where legal goes, where, out of district transportation, just so people understand that what is going in these buckets now that we've made changes.
So one of the things that could be considered, if this were to be adopted long-term, is to actually have the financial report mirror these categories. So what you would see right now is we have 4 categories that we report on: salaries, operating, fixed, and equipment. You could break the financial report out into these 8 categories, so you would clearly see
right.
what are the actual line items within the category, and then if there are adjustments within, you'd see them net to zero within the category. Or if there was something across broad categories, you'd clearly see that within the financial report that the board would have to approve.
Tara, Kristen, you're in our spot.
Again, I'm sorry, utilities, where would you put those now?
So under the state reporting, utilities is classified under supplies.
Supplies and materials.
Correct.
Of course, no, you're just supplies, because this is the CABE one.
Okay, now I'm looking for what, if this is what he's
But we're
recommending.
going with CABE.
So CABE does say supply, they just call it supplies. Most districts do kind of
In this one.
classify
Oh.
supplies and materials, they're one and the same, but it would be supplies. So your 600 object series.
You may get questions at the meeting.
Just make sure you're-
Yeah, I think mine. is on, right? Okay. You may get questions at the full meeting, Rich, about where the 10 we have now will show up here.
Sure.
So just be ready for that. But anything else here?
I think I just want to be clear
Yes.
about, there's a couple of documents floating. One is the actual revised that you have here, the policy, and one is the CABE, so just want to be clear which one we're referring to.
Right, are we recommending
That's a-
currently this one, or are we recommending the one that says Westport?
We're going to recommend the CABE
The
8,
CABE one.
which
The
is the
West-
last,
Which is the
which was the
last
last
page.
page.
Yep.
Well, I'm going to do a thing. Yeah.
Ideally, what Richard said in terms of reporting out the budget would actually, the budget book itself would be orchestrated around these categories. It currently isn't, right?
Right.
So we're not there with that yet, and we can't do it for this year. But ultimately, it'd be nice if the budget book itself had these categories
Great.
instead of the 4 broad ones that it has.
Well, and then when we do present our budget, we do have a short presentation prior to the budget being presented where you'll sort of go through how you design the budget book, you and Dr. Adley, so that's a perfect time to sort of
Talk about
let
it.
the public know we've made changes and here's what we're doing.
All right, public comment on,
Can I
oh,
just
sorry.
before- I
Yes.
just want to clarify. Mine doesn't work, but, so when the policy committee asked me to bring forward a policy with changes, I take Shipman and Goodwin's model policy and modify it. So, for example, we didn't address in the meeting conduct, the participation electronically.
Oh, right, we
feel
need to
like
go
the
back
no
to that.
smoking is not an issue, but if there's anything else that you see that you disagree with, like we should probably, those are the only items in that policy that we haven't discussed.
Oh,
And
thank you,
that's a
Marge, that's a
big-
good point.
That's a big change for us from how we operate now in terms
Right.
of participating telephonically or
All right, so we want-
electronically and that counting for quorum.
So are we going to take a vote on what we're recommending to the board on the policy of the transfers and the categories before we move back to participation in meetings? Or what do you want to do?
Well, or we can take votes on all of them. I was going to report the cents, but, all right, I'll call.
So the committee can't vote?
Oh, let's see.
No.
All right.
We
So,
could
but we
or-
can,
You take a
Sum
sense
up
of,
or-
a sense
Right.
of the meeting.
right, so I will capture,
Okay.
but it seems that there is rather, unanimity.
We're
out
gonna
of that.
recommend the K.
Yeah,
Okay, perfect.
so unless, now we'll go to public comment. I know we have our budget chair here. If you have any thoughts on this, on the transfer, and then public comment on any issue.
Just to make a note that when we talk about it at the board, we can discuss that in more detail. The RC reporting won't go away. This is a separate reporting, so I just wanted to make clear to everybody. I didn't want people to start panicking that we're not reporting out the detailed RC reporting that we typically historically do. So that remains in place. This is something separate from that.
Any other public comment? I know that we, for those who watch this on tape, I apologize. I may have jumped the gun and started today before the tape actually started. May have missed, initially we discussed the notion of public comment, the topic of 3 minutes, and the topic of eliminating a topic restriction. And it looks like this committee is going to report out that 3 minutes appears to be acceptable. There'll be more discussion at the board when we vote on it, and also that we want to eliminate the topic restriction to anything within our board's jurisdiction, which is our current practice, but has not been reflected in the actual policy. So before adjournment, I don't know, was there something else, Krista?
We have to talk about the.
Oh, and then Sun-
Participation in the meeting electronically.
Well, I was not going to do that today because frankly, I have not, I haven't looked at that. There may be other things. It's not on the agenda. So I'm not, I'm not saying that I'm not for changing that.
It is on the agenda, conduct of board meetings, and we have the policy.
Yeah, so we can talk about that. No, it's the policy. It's
the
embedded in the policy.
And it's a big change to the policy from how we,
So, just to be clear, I have no comment about this, but your current agenda reads discussion, I think, we're looking for agenda discussion of the public, comment topic, limitation, and length. So while I have no problem if the policy committee wants to take up that conversation, it's not currently on your agenda.
oh, it's in Marge's thing, the
Oh, it's.
Well, it's,
proposed policy, revision of policy
Which is probably a better way
9310,
to
conduct
approach.
of board meetings.
right.
Make it back.
If I haven't read it, I didn't look at it because I was looking at the two other aspects for this meeting. But if there are thoughts that you wish to express, in particular, you, Krista, because I
Well, then
know
the
this is
question
yours.
is, we can't bring the revised policy because it's all together.
So you have a couple options. Someone could motion to amend the agenda, have this discussion, and then you have to decide if you're prepared. The board sent you down to discuss 9310. You could make a recommendation to the board, although the board has not heard or thought or taken this up. So either you need to motion to change the agenda and have this discussion and then decide if you're prepared and have enough information to have this discussion, or you need to table it to a future. There's nothing saying that this policy must come next meeting. I'd rather you all be prepared, but that's up to you how you wanna, but if you would like to discuss that part of the policy, you need to motion to amend the agenda.
Okay, but as this is a special meeting, we can't amend
Yeah.
special meetings.
We can't do
Do
it.
a special meeting?
Yes.
Yeah, we can't amend.
Then you're stuck, sorry.
No, you're at a good point. That was the added little bit on this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the public, you cannot amend special meetings if it's warned that way. FYI.
Well, I'm happy to have this discussion at the board, and we will be having further policy meetings and take it up as appropriate.
I think we could table this policy.
Yeah.
Well, to Marge's point, the answer is, if you are revising a policy, you can revise sections of the policy. That doesn't mean it can't go through another revision if there's an interest in revising the topic. So you can still make a recommendation if this group feels that they're ready to. If this group feels that they need a policy committee again to discuss 9310, that's fine too. You can call another meeting and you can do that. But to Chris's point, it's a special meeting, and that might be warned at a
Right, but
Right.
as we didn't warn it as even a topic of discussion, I
Right.
think it's inappropriate for us to go down that path. So maybe it just goes to the full board. It doesn't have, that topic doesn't have to come to the policy committee. Just, I would recommend Michael and Marge put it on the full board committee. And maybe the full board can just address it without the policy committee.
You can bring your current recommendations to the board as is warned on the agenda as we discussed it.
Okay,
Yeah, but we won't make a recommendation at all on the electronic.
all right. Very well. Any other public comment? Right before closing, since this is Chris's last official event, I want to thank her for her service, particularly on this committee, as today's tape will reflect Chris is an active member with positive contributions, and we look forward to watching her on TV on other boards, the big board, if you will.
Thank you so much, Michael, and I will continue to be watching you guys. I
All
won't
right.
be up there, but I'll be continuing to watch. Thank you.
We'll be mindful of that.
Thank you.
All right,
Thanks, guys.
motion to adjourn?
Motion?
All right, we're done.